Joining us right now, the former lieutenant.
No, we have to wait for that.
Former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, former Republican National Committee Chairman, often a guest host on Mornings on the Mall.
That's
when
right.
Either Brian or I happen to be
lucky
on vacation. And the man that I once, unfortunately, spontaneously referred to as the Chocolate Dome.
Yes, you did.
And I'll never live that down.
No, you won't.
Office. Michael Steele, it's so good to see you,
It's
sir.
good to see you, man. Good to be with you guys. Good to see you. And Brian and Larry was actually off eating. He was not. You know, it was just eating.
Was there bacon?
Listen, look.
This is great.
This room is indicative, I think,
Wow.
of what we've been talking about over the last few weeks in Maryland. You know Maryland pretty well, Michael Steele. Tell us about your impression of this campaign, the whole season in general, nationwide, but also specifically what's happening here locally.
I think one word comes to mind, and that is authentic. It has been an authentic campaign. It has been about the very concerns that the folks in Maryland have about not just taxes, but the quality of life, how family is raised, how businesses are run, and the fact that they have suffered through 40 tax increases. I love going on air at MSNBC and I say, well, there's at least one place that every liberal in the country should be happy with, and that's Maryland, because they tax the rain there. But this is the response. They look at me and they go, really?
Yeah, even they don't believe
They're like,
it.
It's hard to believe.
I'm like, yeah. So I think there's this authentic feeling out here that this has been not just a well-run campaign, but it's really touched a chord, a nerve with Maryland voters.
Right. We talked earlier about Stuart Rothenberg, of course, from Roll Call. His headline today was that if things are going the way they look like they're going, Barack Obama, between the 2010 election and this 2014 election, could have a historic loss here in terms of a president in off-year elections.
Well,
I want to point out, you know a little something about that 2010 election.
I had something to say about 2010. And
well, the mantra there was
set it up.
retire Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah,
right?
we were very focused on. We made it a national campaign in a very local way.
Yeah.
In other words, I would go, to small towns around the country, and I'd say, you want better local government? Fire Nancy Pelosi, and so people got it because she became representative, a symbol of the failings of government in Washington. And I think Barack Obama has ostensibly become that in this election. He put himself, as he did a few weeks ago, his policies himself right in the mix. And so for guys like Larry Hogan and guys like our Senate candidates around the country, they're like, oh, okay, let's talk about that,
right.
Because it does. The governor of state has to have a partnership with the federal government, and if those policies are having a negative impact on our businesses and the climate to do business in a state like Maryland, hey, let's talk about that.
All right, so I just want to talk about sort of the anecdotal stuff that you can't quantify with a poll.
Right.
And I'm talking to people who've been out knocking on doors, and they say when they walk up to a door, because you're representing a candidate, you've done your research, this is a house that has a Democrat registered.
Right.
You know that going up.
Yeah.
And yet when you knock on the door, they're getting a very positive response. I hear things like that. I look around this room and I see this turnout.
Right.
You feel some enthusiasm. What is it that's going on? What is it that's happening here? And is it different than what we've seen in the past, or are we just in the bubble?
Well, no, I think that there is something going on, and you used the word earlier, turnout. This is a turnout election, and it really does boil down to ground game and all of that. But that's up at the surface. Beneath the surface, there's a separate energy that fuels that turnout, and that's what the folks in this diner are about this morning. You guys start early in the morning. This is not a 12 noon show. So this gives you a sense of the energy that's out there, and knocking on those doors. Marylanders are responding in a very positive way to what I think has been a positive message.
And then the other side of that equation is when you look at how Governor Brown is running Lieutenant Governor Brown is running his campaign. He has a thing at University of Maryland. Young people with Hillary Clinton.
Right.
200 people in the room, empty seats everywhere.
Yeah, and that, again, tells you with respect to the young voters out there, the millennial voters who were the base of support for the Democrats in the last two cycles, it's just not there. Why? Because more than likely, that young person who's graduating this spring doesn't have a job to graduate into, or if they've been out for the last 2 or 3 years, still haven't found a job. And that is something that's been resonating in a negative way for Democrats.
Michael Steele, I want you to listen to this audio. This is Hillary Clinton just yesterday. It's cut 28, Mike. And you know Anthony Brown for the last month. He's been saying this election isn't about the past.
It's about the future.
Yeah, this is the heir apparent, of course.
That's right.
All he's got going for him is that he's got that same D that Martin O'Malley has at the end of his name. But he's been trying to say, no, this is what I'm going to do. This isn't about Martin O'Malley. Listen to Hillary Clinton yesterday.
The real question for the voters in 2014 is whether you want to continue the kind of positive agenda that is making a difference in the lives of the people of this state. Because that's what you'll get with Anthony Brown. He has what it takes to bring people together.
So if you want to continue the last 8 years, that's what you'll get with Anthony Brown. How do you think the Brown campaign?
Next we'll tax the snow, and then we'll tax the sunsets and the sunrises. I mean, this is the problem with Anthony Brown's campaign, and what I've heard from Democrats, is on a good day been lackluster. It has not separated itself from the last 8 years because it couldn't. His operation is largely O'Malley's people. And that's what makes Larry's opportunity in the state that much more exciting, because he has, crafted his own brand, and he's brought this Change Maryland concept to the forefront in a very positive way. So it's not looking backwards. It's not relying on what the early Steele administration had done when we were in place, but really charting a separate course. And Marylanders, I think, are ready for that.
Okay, so as you look at the Senate, what's your prediction?
Well, okay, so I've been criticized because I've not been all hyper nuts about, Republicans winning the Senate, because I have two concerns. The first concern is that the numbers aren't what you think they are. And I think the proof is in places like Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia.
Are you talking the cemetery vote that shows up, right?
Well, yeah, it's
specifically in Louisiana.
It's the cemetery vote that shows up. Well, Louisiana and Georgia are going to go to a runoff, and that.
So we may not know that until January.
We may not know that until January, but we're doing better in places like Colorado. Obviously, we'll probably wind up taking Alaska, although that's been very hard to poll because it's
always
Alaska.
Hard to poll,
it's always hard to poll. But so the numbers, I think, sort of belie the reality for a lot of folks out there, that there's a nervousness about turning over control to Republicans. And the second point is, what do we do with it when we get it?
Yeah.
And not a lot of senators have made that case.
And we've not made the case to the people yet.
Good point. I want to talk to you about the animus of racial politics that has been introduced in this campaign when we come back to talk.
All right, Brian, you mentioned racial politics. Right. For those of you who don't know, Michael Steele is, in fact, African-American.
No.
You are a black
Shocking.
Republican.
What?
It's true. But the reason I pointed out is because I think that it's important to have your perspective on this, because we saw Anthony Brown put out a flyer that equated opposition to his campaign with segregation and, separate bathrooms in the 60s. And, by the way, equating himself with Martin Luther King, which is a whole other thing. But it gets nastier in other states. You've got Georgia with Michael Ferguson.
Right. You're talking about the Ferguson case, Michael Brown. You're talking about Trayvon Martin. And even an MSNBC anchor asked the question, can you not make the point without dragging out dead young black teenagers?
Yeah, right, exactly. And look, this is the fail-safe for Democrat campaigns that I've seen since my early days in politics. I remember when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2006, driving up Central Avenue, 214, heading home, and seeing signs along the highway that, without an authority line, but mind you, that said, don't turn back the clock.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what clock? Churches will burn. I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? So
they were talking about you.
Right. So this notion that if you elect a Republican, all of a sudden you lose your civil rights, churches will start to burn, and it's just crazy nonsense. Chris Matthews and I got into it a couple of weeks ago on this very point, and I asked him, I said, so when the country elected George Bush twice, how many churches burned?
Yeah.
So can we just stop the stupid on this? And so this race angle that the Brown campaign, that Herb McMillan, who's running for the House of Delegates in Annapolis has to deal with. He's being, because someone who's a friend of someone wrote a check who's associated to a white separatist makes him a white separatist. I mean, it's like crazy.
It also ignores history.
It does.
Because if you look at the civil rights struggles of the 60s, the people who were standing in the way were Democrats.
They were the Democrats.
They were not Republicans.
Right. Well, they have a revisionist view of their particular history when it comes to the civil rights legislation. Yeah. But look, this is the modern era, and this is, I think, again, an opportunity where Republicans have a chance to stand with the civil rights community on a number of fronts.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because let's get real here. Those tactics keep getting used because it often works.
It often works.
What does a Republican do against this?
And I think what you do is you first you debunk it, you put it down when it comes up, and secondly, you take a more affirmative argument when it comes to civil rights. It's a legitimate concern that a lot of African Americans, a lot of minorities still have, particularly given the fact that the Voting Rights Act is now sitting in the Congress, not moving. It's expired. Several sections of it needs to be addressed. I think those are opportunities there where we can realign ourselves with our historic relationship with blacks on this subject.
The Party of Lincoln.
And update those statutes that empower folks to go to the polls and vote, to protect their access to the ballot box integrity. I think those are arguments we can make. We oftentimes make it in a context that doesn't allow folks to understand exactly where we're coming from, and it gets all jumbled up.
All right, when we come back, I have a question that I want to ask you about some of the things, the underbelly of politics. Dead people voting, the fact that in the state of Maryland, we've just heard some information about the fact that non-citizens, nothing stops them from voting. Yeah. You've been on the front lines. You know what it's like to work on a retail level in this state. More with Michael Steele in just a moment. It's now 8:21.
Southwest Airlines knows new service means new smiles. Announcing new nonstop service from Reagan National to Dallas Love Field starting October 13th. Isn't making new friends fun? Book online only at southwest.com.
Here's the deal. Michael Steele has this big MSNBC contract, so you're set for life. You don't have to worry about your retirement. Your finances are solid. But if you have put off your planning for retirement, you're going to have to do something about it. I mean, no one's offering you a big, fat MSNBC contract, are they? No, they're not. So talk to my friends at Winter Troxel at Monumental Financial Group. They're right here on Rockville Pike, in fact. These guys know what they're talking about. They're going to make your retirement planning a lot more simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it is very important. They're going to give you that feeling that you have control over your future. We talk about liberty and independence all the time. You want independence in your retirement, don't you? So take your future into your own hands. Talk to Winter Troxel and the group at Monumental Financial Group today. You get a complimentary retirement consultation. Michael, I'm sure that they'll accept you. You've probably got some ideas.
This is good.
301-569-6941. That's 301-569-6941. What do you do with your MSNBC 401k? Talk to Winter Troxel and visit monumentalfinancial.com.
Walmart knows how hard you work to provide for your family. You shouldn't have to spend a fortune to send them money. Now you don't have to. Because the new Walmart to Walmart money transfer powered by RIA can save you up to 50% on money transfers. That's less money for fees and more money for family. So try Walmart to Walmart today. Save money, live better, Walmart.
Compared to other money transfer providers at Walmart for 12 months ending April 15th, 2014. Savings vary by transfer amount. Available for domestic transfers up to $900. Visit the Walmart Money Center for details.
The midterm elections are here. The afternoon after the election, Bloomberg Government will help you understand what it means for your business, from defense to healthcare, energy, and beyond. Find out what's next on Washington's agenda. Go to bgov.com/election now and register to join Bloomberg Government's experts for a special online event November 5th at 2 p.m. Be in the know with Bloomberg Government, November 5th at 2 p.m. Complimentary registration and details at bgov.com/election.
Election 2014, the midterms. Continuing coverage on election night. Sponsored by My Guys Moving on WMAL.
It's 8:23 on WMAL. We're joined by Michael Steele, former lieutenant governor from the state of Maryland, a man who also ran the RNC. Okay, look, we've seen a couple of things happen here recently that cause people to be concerned. Number one, there is a history, is there not, of, in some voting areas, it seems that the dead rise the day or two after Halloween, and we actually have dead people who vote in the state of Maryland. And on top of that, there's just been a court case where we have had an admission, a shocking admission, from people that say that, non-citizens will vote in this election.
Yeah.
And it could be in a tight election enough to change things. Third thing, the voting machines. It seems that there are some voting machines in the state of Maryland that seem to have a little glitch, and each and every time, lo and behold, that this glitch emerges, it seems to be in the favor of Democrats and never in the favor of Republicans. I mean, this all sounds a little dirty. I mean, how dirty is politics in the state of Maryland?
It's pretty ugly, and we know going back to Ellen Sauerbrey's race in 1994, how 11 o'clock at night they find, in a locked classroom in Baltimore City.
They found one more box.
They found one more box of ballots that, we forgot to count these.
And so they make the difference. Shocking.
There is a reason why, people are concerned about ballot integrity. And it's because of the very examples you cite. And we have not been any exception to that concern. And I think that the bottom line is, whether it's the technology you use and the machines, the people you have at the polls, the minute you undermine that integrity, the minute the whole thing falls apart. And I think that we do need to put more in place to make sure that those machines, when you click the R, it's not actually registering 2 votes for the D.
Yeah.
And there are just too many examples of that right now.
Michael Steele, when you came into the room, the place got alive. It's filling up, partly because you are here. You're a very popular figure in this state.
It's the chocolate dome.
Well, it's not bad, I gotta say. You haven't ruled out running for statewide office again in Maryland,
look,
have you?
I loved my time serving with Bob Ehrlich as lieutenant governor. It really brought home to me the importance and relevance of public service.
There's a Senate race coming up.
There is a Senate race coming up. So we'll see what happens down the road.
We'll see what happens down the road.
There you go.
Michael Steele.
Thank you very much.
I'm an old man.